I do before we wrap up the show, I have to talk about some of these developments, which are very, very positive developments as it relates to the war in Ukraine. This was one of, if not probably the strongest, most compelling reason to support Donald Trump, is that he was just so much better than the previous administration on this issue. He had some great rhetoric around it on the campaign, and it really does seem like it always kind of seemed like he really does mean it when he says he wants the war to end. You have a very a very big contrast between what Joe Biden or Kamala Harris would say about the war and have been saying about it for years. They would be saying, we can't give Vladimir Putin an inch. We will fund Ukraine all the way. We're not stopping until Russia is completely driven out. This is a ridiculous, unrealistic expectation. Donald Trump always said, which was really just the correct thing, I want the war to end. I want the killing to end. I want people to stop dying. That just, it's funny because when he said this on CNN, I think this was almost 2 years ago now that he said this. This was like a considered a very controversial statement. And by the way, doesn't that say everything about the United States of America's government as it currently stands? That is considered a controversial statement. I mean, what more can I even add to that? Anyway, I want to play this video from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. So yeah, let's play the Pete Hegseth video because he just said this, and then I'll read Donald Trump's tweet about it.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5. There also must be robust international oversight of the line of contact. To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
I mean, it's hard to stress how great it is to hear something like that from the Defense Secretary of the United States of America. And, you know, Pete Hegseth has, he's been kind of one of the question marks for me. Donald Trump had some picks that I hated. He had some picks that I loved. So like in the hated category is like Marco Rubio and Ratcliffe. In the love category is like Tulsi and Bobby Kennedy and Kash Patel and what was the other one? I'm blanking. And Bhattacharya. Pete Hegseth was always kind of a question to me because he was like, when I knew Pete, which, you know, I didn't know him super well, but like I've done a few like Fox News shows with him, and we went out for beers like after one of our shows once. And so from what I've known of him, he was like really a neocon. The Pete Hegseth that I knew was like, had awful foreign policy. And so that was concerning to me because I had private conversations with the guy where he said some things that I was not happy about, but the word was that he's really changed his mind on a lot of this stuff, and he's really kind of opened up to the idea that these wars were all a big mistake. And look, there's a weird thing that happens with this dynamic because you kind of don't know. I mean, look, I talk to a lot of military guys. There's a lot of military guys who listen to the show, and I talk to many of them, like, you know, after shows and at different, you know, events and stuff like that. And there's a ton of people like that. I mean, there's a ton of people who were like all gung-ho on the wars and then woke up. You know, again, this was true by 2008. It was true by 2012, as you guys, I always like to bring this statistic up because it's very interesting. But in 2008 and 2012, the presidential candidate who got more money from active duty military than every other candidate combined, not just the most money from active duty military, but more money than every other candidate put together, including Barack Obama, was Ron Paul. The active duty military guys were going for the most hardcore anti-war, pro-peace candidate. And that's because they're the ones who actually have to pay the cost. You know what I mean? These are the guys whose lives are ruined, who watched their buddy bleed out in their lap screaming for his mom. These are the ones who are having nightmares about the shit they did over there, So it makes sense that there are a lot of people who really changed their minds on this. However, at the same time, when you got a guy who's a Fox News host and the sentiment of the Republican Party totally went from gung-ho for war to totally skeptical of this type of a permanent war, you wonder, like, did he really have a change of heart, or is he just saying the thing that's very popular for his viewers right now? So this is a great start. Let's just say that. Very, very good start for Pete Hegseth, and it's just, I don't know, it's hard to say, but it's just fantastic. I just can't overstate how great this is. And I understand the war hasn't ended yet. This is rhetoric, but it is such an improvement from where we were. It's really, even just a year ago, but especially a couple years ago, it is, yeah, I mean, it's time for this catastrophe to end. And I got to say, it's like, as I was kind of talking about on the show yesterday, it seems like I'm just in the business about I'm just in the business of being right about stuff. And it's just, I mean, I don't mean just to like pat my own back here. I realize I'm doing a little too much of that this episode, so I apologize. But it's like so many of us who were pushing in real time to take a deal. I mean, the deal that Zelensky was essentially forced out of accepting by Boris Johnson and Joe Biden, or whoever was really making the decisions, Anthony Blinken, whatever. They had a much better deal on the table. And we were saying, just take this deal and end the war now. And all of the hawks said, no, that would be too big of a concession. And we have to drive Vladimir Putin completely out of Ukraine, something that everybody involved who knows anything about it knows the only way to actually do that would be to deploy the full U.S. military and have a direct hot war with the biggest nuclear power in the world. So we're not going to do that. Even Joe Biden wasn't ever prepared to do that. And so now what we got as a result of not taking this deal, like once again, one more war that the hawks got completely wrong. So now, instead of doing what we all suggested at the time, we listened to the hawks. And so hundreds of thousands more people died, and Ukraine's going to end up with a worse deal. Just like goddamn, like of all of the wars over the last 25 years, this is probably got to take first place as being the one that was the easiest to negotiate away. I mean, literally, the head of NATO, Stoltenberg. I know I'm butchering his name. I'm sorry. I should at one point learn how to say his name, but I just don't really have that much respect for him. Anyway, but Stoltenberg himself admitted, right, that before Vladimir Putin invaded, he said to NATO, he goes, if you just put it in writing that you won't bring Ukraine into NATO, I won't invade. But if you don't give me that in writing, I'm going to invade the country. And Stoltenberg bragged about how he said, we refused because we're not going to be bullied by Vladimir Putin or something like that. This was the simple ask that Vladimir Putin had. And what a reasonable ask. And that doesn't mean like he's still wrong for invading and he killed a whole lot of people and that's just totally unjustified. And he's a war criminal, just like all the US presidents are war criminals too. And I have no love for Vladimir Putin. But I'm sorry, the starting point of just asking, like just saying you cannot bring our biggest neighboring country into your military alliance is totally reasonable. And we would have the exact same demand. There is no way the United States of America would allow Mexico or Canada or Cuba to join a military alliance with China or Russia. It's just no way, no conceivable way we could allow that to happen because no regime can allow that. And so you just look at this and now, I mean, Trump's saying millions. I don't know if the number's actually in millions, but it's certainly in the hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. Vladimir Putin is going home with chunks of Ukraine. He's going to keep part of it. And we got our defense secretary up there saying, yeah, and NATO's not going to be a part of this. So essentially, we're giving, not only did all these people die and all this territory was lost, but he's getting the thing he wanted anyway. We could have just given him that and avoided this whole thing. This will go down in history as one of like the most easily avoidable catastrophes in post World War II European history. Just a goddamn tragedy. But anyway, really, really good the message that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are sending here. So that is something to be really happy about. Such a huge improvement from where we were. All right, I got to wrap.